you can correctly answer these grammar questions, then, well, your grammar skills are excellent. So I have a quiz for you, and I want to test your knowledge of English grammar. And I do think this is a little more challenging, mostly for intermediate to advanced learners. So let's go ahead and jump into it with our first question, which is right here. She speaks English as though she a native. Now, I love it when you participate in these lessons, so I would encourage you to write your answers in the chat, in the comments. I love hearing from you, and it's a great way to actually get involved and actively practice the language. She speaks English as though she a native. So I will give you the answer along with a brief little explanation as to why it is the correct answer. So what do you think? In this case, the missing word, she speaks English as though she a native. We're really talking about the subjunctive in this case. So she speaks English as though she were a native. Clauses that start with as if and as though describe unreal or improbable situations if they are followed by an unreal tense. In this case, the past subjunctive or the past perfect subjunctive. Now, if you said she is, again, this is one of those things when people will say that in spoken English. And people may not use the subjunctive, like if I were you versus if I was you. Grammatically speaking, in this case, I think the subjunctive is recommended. It's preferred. But if you said she is, I'm not going to hold that against you. So one thing I wanted to let you know as we continue, if you would like to access these lesson notes, you can click on the link down below in the description. Join my email community, and that way you can learn more. And if you're already a part of it, check your inbox because I have sent them to you. And also, I should go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about trying to help you reach your fluency goals. So let's continue with our grammar quiz. And the next question that I have for you is right here. We're starting out with these, just fill in the blank. By this time next year, they in their new home. Think about the context, and I'd say apart from that, think about the time as well. By this time next year, they in their new home. So for some of these, there may be more than one answer. I feel like with this one, not so much, but I will talk about that as we go through the lesson. And that's part of what makes English, I think, really tricky, really challenging, is that you have, things are acceptable versus unacceptable. And if they're acceptable, then there may be more than one way to answer it. So by this time next year, I said, think about the time. We're talking about a point in the future. This time, 1 year in the future. So because of that, I want you to think about the continuous tense. And in that case, you would say they will be living in their new home. By this time next year, they will be living in their new home. I don't know if in this context, if you could use another verb apart from living, but I think this is the one that you want to use. So the future continuous is used to indicate an ongoing action in the future. They were living in the home, they're living in it at this time next year, and then they will continue living in it in the future. Excellent, great answers, Lolly, Fabio, well done, nice. I'll try to give some shout outs from time to time as we do this. Little they know what was about to happen. Which word are you going to put in there that will accurately complete this sentence? Little they know what was about to happen. Now, this is an expression that I'm confident that you have heard before, especially if you're somebody who watches movies, TV shows. I think you've come across this phrasing and you've heard it, but it is one that I don't know if you would end up using it that often in just casual conversation, but it's great to know, especially for your listening comprehension. So I see a lot of great answers, which makes me think, yes, you are familiar with this phrasing. Little did they know what was about to happen. All right, well done, John, Anesco, Joni, Kevin, perfect. So the reason why I said maybe you don't use this as often, because we're talking about inversion. And it's not just you. I feel like I don't invert that many of my sentences. So basically, we use inversion after negative adverbials. And when I mention inversion, we're basically switching the subject and the verb. So basically, you might use this if you want to add emphasis. And it does sound a little more formal, and people may use it to persuade someone. They may use it for effect. So in that case, you're more likely to hear it in a speech or a presentation or telling a story. I can imagine with this sentence, this is something like a narrator might say if you're watching a movie or a TV show. Little did they know what was about to happen. And they just use this for effect. So to give you a little more context with some of these inverted phrases, like the one that we just talked about, little did they know what was about to happen, or never had I seen such a beautiful sunset. Now, of course, I would not typically say this. I would just say, I've never seen such a beautiful sunset. But if you want to add that emphasis and use that effect, you could use inversion. Or in this case, rarely will you hear such beautiful music. Or under no circumstances should you hit the like button. Okay? I don't mean that. Of course, I would love it if you go ahead and hit the like button. This is just an example, okay? And I could say, never have I created such a terrible example encouraging you not to hit the like button. But anyway, just wanted to give you some other examples using inversion. I had to share this with you. I found this meme and I thought it was funny. Just again, arson is not funny, but you see this house burning and that child, just the look on her face. Little do they know. It makes you wonder, okay, what happened? What was going on? So just to have a little fun. It's always good to laugh when trying to learn another language, improve your skills. What do you think? I prefer tea, coffee. This is, well, I don't want to give it away, but I feel like you probably know this one. You've heard this structure before. And again, I think it's useful. It's common. So I told you this is more intermediate to advanced. As far as the type of questions, I prefer tea, coffee. So I see a couple of different answers in there. I think one of them in this context is definitely better to use. Now, you could use over. I'm not going to say that's incorrect, but if I'm going to compare the frequency of the phrases, like what is somebody going to say? In this case, to. I prefer tea to coffee. I prefer this to that. I prefer X to Y. And as far as an explanation, I thought it just helps. I can talk about what this is from Cambridge when talking about prefer. And if you can't see it, I'll go ahead and read it to you. Expressing preference, we use prefer to say that you like one activity over the other, and we can use a prepositional phrase with to when we compare two things or actions. I use their example sentence. I prefer tea to coffee, or we prefer going by ferry to flying. So you prefer one thing to the other. Now, like I said, you could say, I prefer this over that. That is also something you will hear, especially in conversation. And that's why I said there are maybe multiple answers that are acceptable. But in this case, I definitely want to make you aware of what I think is more commonly used. And in this case, I think you would use to more often. I prefer tea to coffee. Had I known, there are several missing words. It differently. Had I known, it differently. Well, I've already told you there are a few missing words. So which words are you going to use to complete this sentence? Now, there's something that I will tell you something about this sentence, which just looking at the sentence, I think that you are aware of. So had I known, differently. So we're talking about the third conditional. A third conditional, you probably notice, wait a second, this is not an if statement. Generally speaking, conditional sentences, you're going to use an if statement. But we're not here because it is inverted. But it's still the third conditional. So I would say, had I known, and you're using the past perfect, I would have, plus the past participle, I would have done it differently. So this is an inverted statement using the third conditional, so there is no if. We just talked about inversion. And you're going to use the third conditional to talk about the past, describing a situation that didn't happen, it's imaginary, and this is the form that you would use. Generally, if plus the past perfect plus would have, and then the past participle. Again, I think more commonly, like I would probably just say in casual conversation, oh, if I had known, I would have done it differently. And I'm using that if statement. But I wanted to trick you a little bit with that inverted sentence right there. Had I known, I would have done it differently. Let's move into some multiple choice questions. And I do think I could have probably made this a little more difficult. I think this is going to make it a little easier, but that's okay. The idea is just to practice your grammar skills, reinforce some of the rules and nuances that you already know and you may be familiar with. So which is grammatically correct? I've talked about this before. If you've watched my videos, especially my grammar videos, so I hope that you can get this one. He suggested me to go, or he suggested that I go, or he suggested me going. Which sentence is grammatically correct? The key word in here is suggest. So that verb is really the focus. In this case, we're talking about the verb suggest. You are going to, the answer is B. He suggested that I go. So the verb suggest, we're going to follow that with a that clause. And again, that could be omitted, but we're going to use that plus the subject plus the base verb. He suggested that I do this, or somebody else suggested that I do that. To help reinforce this, I believe I've even shown this before in a previous video talking about suggest. This is taken directly from Cambridge, the online dictionary, and it's talking about suggest plus a that clause. When we suggest an action to someone, we can use a that clause, and in informal situations is what it's saying, that is often left out. So the example sentence, I suggest that you leave here around 4 o'clock, or her doctor suggested that she should reduce her working hours. So keep that form in mind. And when I've talked about this previously, I've also talked about the verb recommend. I suggest that you do something. I recommend that you do something. This is something I often hear, and small mistakes are made when people are making suggestions. Even those that I think are more proficient, that are advanced learners, I will hear this slight speaking mistake from time to time. Just keep in mind, I recommend that. I suggest that. How about this? Which word fits best? What do you think? I look forward to you. Are we going to complete this sentence with meet, meeting, or have met? I look forward to you. This is again, I don't want to give it away. The phrase Look forward is one, it's one that you know. I feel like you probably actively use it right now, which is good. This is really just a reminder because once again, I will hear some speaking mistakes from time to time, whether it's with this phrase or another that I will show you. So I see all those wonderful B answers, which is correct. I look forward to meeting you, and we're going to follow it with the gerund. Now, you could look at this and probably guess, like, well, what is the mistake that people often make? You have look forward to, and then sometimes I feel like our brains are trained to think of the infinitive, and people will say to plus the base verb. But in this case, the phrase in its entirety is look forward to, and then we follow it with the gerund. Because to is a preposition, so we'll follow it with a gerund. Now, to have a little fun, to give you a little more context, because I told you whether it's this phrase or another one, I do hear these mistakes all the time, and I thought I would ask ChatGPT. Again, I don't know if you can see it, so I'll just read it for you. My question to ChatGPT was, give me a list of the 10 most common phrases when you have the word to followed by a gerund. So I take it with a grain of salt as to whether these are the most common ones, but still, I think they are pretty common. And again, this is when small mistakes are made, like that first one, look forward to plus gerund. But you would also say you are committed to doing something. You are used to doing something. Maybe you're devoted to doing something. Other words they use, you're addicted to maybe playing video games, or you're open to learning more about some topic, or you can confess to doing something, object to doing something, you're opposed to doing something, or admit to doing something. So I thought I'd have a little fun there in using ChatGPT to give you more phrases that you have to followed by the gerund. So just keep that in mind. All right. Here is the next one. And awesome, Delcy Williams, great. Thanks for joining, becoming a member. Saw some other members in here, Kevin, Lolly, and a couple others that even just joined at the beginning. I really appreciate it. Helps keep all this going. So, which is correct? And I'm not going to give it away, not yet. Neither of the options are good. Or B, neither of the options is good. Which sentence is correct? And for this one, honestly, I imagine there may be a mix of responses. I like that. I like the thinking emoji. Like maybe not sure. Neither of the options are good. Neither of the options is good. Which sentence is correct? So grammatically speaking, there is an answer that is, I'd say, more acceptable in this context. So the key word in there is neither. If we're talking about neither, it is singular. So in this case, neither of the options is good. The pronoun neither is singular and requires the use of a singular verb form. Let's look down there. However, and there is another however. A plural verb form is common in informal writing and speech when a prepositional phrase comes between the word and the verb. So in this case, we have that prepositional phrase, neither of the options. Options, this is a plural noun, which again, our brain is then trained to think, okay, options are. So in spoken English, I think this is the whole idea that I really want you to be aware of. You will hear people use neither of something or something else. Neither of the options are good. That is something you may hear, grammatically speaking. Again, people would say, yes, neither is the pronoun is singular. So basically, you don't have to take it from me. You can take it from the Britannica Dictionary. It's basically saying the same thing, that you have the grammar rules, the pronoun neither is singular. And again, however, when it's followed by, in this case, they said when neither is followed by of. of something, neither of the answers is correct or neither of the answers are correct. Keep this in mind. Again, I would always encourage people, don't think of everything in English as either right or wrong or correct or incorrect. Think about it more as acceptable or unacceptable. And it's a sliding scale. And in this case, I think neither is more acceptable, but in some instances, neither are works as well when you have that prepositional phrase in between. So that is a little bit of a trick question. This is not a trick question right here, even though maybe it looks like one. Which is correct? The fewer people there are, the better, or the less people there are, the better. Which sentence are you going to use if you were talking to someone and you're going to use one of these sentences, and just looking at it, you can see the difference between the two. The only two words that are different, we're talking about the words fewer or less. The fewer people there are, the better, or the less people there are, the better. So we're talking about people. People, it is a count noun. We can count the number of people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It is an irregular count noun. So when we're talking about count nouns, grammatically speaking, we're going to use fewer. The fewer people there are, the better. So I explained that right down there. We use fewer with countable nouns. People is an irregular plural noun. So I will say, once again, this is another instance when people make, slight speaking mistakes, but they make it enough to where, maybe it's considered acceptable. Because oftentimes with certain count nouns, especially if we're talking about irregular plural nouns, you do hear people use less in spoken English. So again, if you said less, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's not like the worst mistake in the world. It's not gonna, if somebody were to hear this, they're not gonna really pay attention and be like, oh, wow, that was a grammar mistake. Native speakers actually make these mistakes quite often. And to reinforce that fact, I have this funny comic here, which is something, again, I believe I've shared this before when talking about the difference between fewer and less. If you go to grocery stores in the US, you'll see these signs that are grammatically incorrect. 10, like this cashier lane, this line is for 10 items or less. So in this comic, they crossed it out and said fewer, and down below, the guy says, what can I say? I was an English major. So it's like he had to make that grammatical correction on the sign. 10 items or fewer instead of 10 items or less. So those are words that are commonly confused, fewer and less. Here is another difficult question. And I'm kind of curious. What do you think? In the following sentence, who has the telescope? The man saw the woman with the telescope. Who has the telescope? Is the man the person who has the telescope, or is it the woman who has the telescope? The man saw the woman with the telescope. What do you think? So this is another sentence that it's a little tricky, because when you're kind of breaking this down and you see that prepositional phrase, okay, wait a second, with the telescope, all right? And there are two people in the sentence, this man, this woman, but you're trying to think, who has it? The man saw the woman with the telescope. To be perfectly honest, you don't know at this point because I'm not giving you enough context. But this is it's a fairly well-known sentence in linguistics when we're talking about English, because it is an example of an ambiguous sentence. So if you said A or B, either one is correct. Depending on the context, I could say, the man saw the woman with the telescope. And that may make you think, okay, the man is looking through the telescope and is looking at this woman, which is perfectly correct. It's grammatically correct. But it's also ambiguous because I could say the man saw the woman with the telescope, and the woman is the person holding the telescope. Like I see some woman walking on the street holding a telescope, and we could say the man saw the woman with the telescope. It is also grammatically correct. And that's when it says, that's down below, it says these ambiguous sentences are only understandable in context. Like you need extra information to know who actually has possession of the telescope. There are other sentences like this, but this is one that in linguistics, it's pretty well known as an example of an ambiguous sentence. The man saw the woman with the telescope. Who says that we can't have a little fun while we do this? Let's make you think a little more. Instead of giving you a multiple choice, let's actually have you write out some sentences. So I want you to change this sentence to reported speech. Right now, it is direct speech. I am tired, she said. This is another, you're taking a grammar quiz. This is an activity that they may have you do. You have this direct sentence, and they say, okay, change this to reported speech. How are you going to rewrite this sentence so that it has the same meaning? And we're going to use reported speech instead of direct speech. Well done, Vanati, Lali, keyword. So, JD, she said that she was tired, or she said she was tired. You could use that, or you could omit it. Either one works, but we're going to use she said she was tired because normally the tense in reported speech is one tense back in time from the tense in direct speech. So in direct speech, it was in the present. I am tired. So we're going to go one back, which means we're going to use the past. She said she was tired, or she said that she was tired. Excellent. You guys rocked that one. Maybe this one's a little trickier. We'll see. We'll find out. I want you to make this sentence passive. They are repairing the car. How can we change this sentence so that it has the same meaning, but we're just going to write it in the passive voice? So in the active, they are repairing the car. In the passive, what are you going to say? So with the passive, I don't want to go ahead and tell you the form. I'll tell you in just a moment when I give you the explanation. But how would you rewrite that sentence in the passive? The correct answer. All right, well, good job. All right, we got some great responses. Joni, Frank, Joanna, Alicia. The car is being repaired. Now, in this case, you could follow it with by someone, but because we're saying they and we're talking about people repairing a car, this is we could probably omit the actor. You could say the car is being repaired by them, but often if you're saying the car is being repaired, most of the time it's implied that they took it to a mechanic, they took it to a shop, and there are mechanics repairing the car. So the passive voice is used to show interest in the person or object that experiences the action. So in this case, the car is experiencing the action. We want to highlight and emphasize that. And as opposed to the person or object performing the action. So in the active voice, the focus is kind of like they. They are repairing the car. These are the people that are doing it. But if we don't really want to highlight that, then we could use the passive. And in this case, we're talking about the passive present continuous. The car is being repaired. I thought this was funny. Again, I found this passive voice joke, believe it or not. And the joke says, why was the road crossed by the chicken? We're just changing the question from why did the chicken cross the road to the passive. And the chicken's response right there is, I thought this was supposed to be about me. Like the joke is supposed to focus on me. So if you change it to the passive, then the focus is really going to be on the road that is crossed. So again, a little humor with grammar. It's not often you find many grammar jokes, but I thought this one was kind of humorous, so I wanted to share it with you, a passive voice joke. What do you think? Change the following to a conditional sentence. So I'm giving you two different sentences. He didn't study, he failed the exam. These are two simple sentences. You know, you can read this, you hear me say it, you understand what's going on, but I want you to change this and make it a conditional sentence. And this is when you get into a little more advanced grammar, when you have these two simple sentences, that instead of using two simple sentences, we can use a complex sentence with a conditional, with an if statement. So in this case, he didn't study, he failed the exam, it's already happened, we can't change this, so we're talking about something in the past that we cannot change, and we're going to express this. This is an unreal situation, all right? We cannot change the past. So therefore, we're talking about the third conditional. You've heard me mention the third conditional already, and I talked about the form that you would use. So if I want to change this using the third conditional, if he had studied, and we're using that past perfect, had studied, if he had studied, he would not have failed the exam, or he wouldn't have failed the exam. If you wanted to change this around and change the verb fail to pass, you could say he would have passed the exam. That would also work if you wanted to use the opposite of fail. Or if we're going to just stick with the words that were used in the original sentences, if he had studied, he would not have failed the exam. Once again, we're using that past perfect in our if statement, and then in the result, would have plus the past participle. Again, I think this is something that I think many of you used. Perfect. And I saw a lot of great answers. Well done. How about changing this sentence right here so that you are using a gerund? Rewrite the following sentence with a gerund. Again, write your answers in the chat, in the comments. I love it. I love seeing so many people participate in these lessons. If you made a mistake and you didn't get one, that is perfectly okay. Hopefully, you understood the explanation and understand what the mistake was and why it was made and how to correct it. It's all about improving your grammar skills. So the sentence we have here, I hate when people interrupt me. And yeah, I think all of us hate that. So I hate when people interrupt me, and I want you to change this so that you're using a gerund. And this is also tied back into something else we were talking about just a moment ago. I want you to use a gerund, which is it's like that verb form with the ing, except it's not technically a verb, even though it looks like one. So I hate when people interrupt me. If you want to change this so that you're using a gerund, we're actually going to change this to the passive. I hate being interrupted. So you could say, I hate being interrupted by someone, but it's unnecessary. We're just talking about people in general. So this is an example of the passive gerund form, which again, as a gerund, which is a verb with ing, ending in the passive voice. So just to give you an example, it may appear in one of two forms, like in the present, like being shown, or in the past, having been shown. So I hate when people interrupt me. We can change that using a gerund. I hate being interrupted. If you said, sometimes you could say getting, like you could get interrupted. I hate getting interrupted. That would also work as well. This one I think is a little more challenging. Even still, it's getting a little more difficult as we go through this. I want you to transform this sentence using the keyword so that it has the same meaning. And I've done these exercises with you before, doing these keyword transformations. So the sentence that I want you to change is right here. We had no idea that he was planning to resign. I want you to rewrite this sentence using the word intention. And this can definitely be a little tricky. I think once I show you the answer and you're able to read it using the word intention, you'll probably think to yourself, yes, okay, I've heard that form before. I've heard people use sentences like that, like this, but sometimes it can be really difficult to think about that change, think about that transformation in the moment, which is what I want you to do right now. This is definitely an exercise that I would say is more advanced. We had no idea that he was planning to resign, and I want you to change that using the word intention. So I see we had, okay, I see some answers kind of close. In this case, a phrase that is commonly used, and I said probably when I show you, you could say, well, let me show you the answer and then we'll talk about it. We had no idea he had any intention of resigning. So the phrase that I'm talking about is any intention of doing something. And in that case, do you have any intention of writing to me in the comments? Do you have any intention of hitting the like button? Or do you have any intention of, I don't know, I can't even think of another sentence, but any intention of, that is the phrase that I was talking about before when I said, I think when I tell you, you're going to recognize, okay, yes, I've heard those words together, somebody talking about any intention of doing something. So in this case, we can use that phrase. We had no idea he had any intention of resigning. And it works well. It allows us to transform this sentence so that both of them have the same meaning. So I hope that you will learn something new. And if you didn't get all of these correct, that's perfectly fine. Some of them were a little tricky, and some of them I told you that that both of the answers were correct, like the ambiguous sentence, or neither of the options is or are, and you have these small nuances which can really make English a frustrating language to learn, but it's good to know. And once again, just as a reminder, if you would like to get these lesson notes, join the community. Click on that link down below in the description. If you're already a part of the community, I have sent them to you. So hopefully, if you did answer all of these correct, then yes, your grammar is excellent. I would even say if you got most of them correct or many of them correct, your grammar, in my view, is still excellent. So let me know how you did in the comments. Like I was saying, do you have any intention of writing to me in the comments? I hope that you do. And let me know how you did. I always love hearing from you. If you enjoyed this lesson, you can also let me know by hitting that like button. I always appreciate it. And I will see you soon for another lesson, whether it's vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation. I like to mix it up from time to time, but I will see you for another